Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are so happy to have you all here today. We will allow for a few moments to let other participants and attendees join in today, and then we'll go ahead and get started. We are so happy to see so many of you joining us here today. I see some familiar names as well. It is so great to have you all here. So like I said at the, just a few moments ago, give us a few minutes and we'll allow some more time for more participants to join in, and then we'll get started. If you have any issues with connectivity, audio, feel free to send us a message in the chat, and one of us will do our best to help you get connected for our webinar today. So hang tight and I'll be right back. If you're just joining us, thank you for taking some time out of your day today to be here with us. We are going to give it just another minute and then we will go ahead and get started. If you have any questions or any issues with connection, please send us a chat message to all panelists and we will do our best to assist you. But we'll give it another minute here and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so it looks like we have a good number of attendees that have joined us live. My panelists are here, my co-moderator is here, so we will go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sana Magani, and I am a program manager at Trellis Company. It is an honor to hold space for you all here today. This is actually a topic that I have been thinking about a lot over the last several weeks, and something that I've had conversations with about my colleagues in the higher education space. And so I'm really excited to be able to bring this to you. But before we get started, let me tell you a little bit more about Trellis Company. So Trellis Company is a nonprofit 501c3 that has nearly 40 years of history working to promote access and success in higher education. The Community Investment Division provides services to students, institutions, and policymakers with a goal of promoting these outcomes. Also, I want to do a shout out to our sister organization, the Trellis Foundation. They are co-hosting and co-sponsoring this webinar today. So the foundation is focused on a statewide, in the state of Texas, efforts to improve attainment for low to moderate income students as they pursue post-secondary credentials and degrees. Both the community investment arm of Trellis Company and the Trellis Foundation are excited to have this webinar here today for our higher education colleagues. So when I say higher education colleagues, I mean for those of us who work at institutions of higher education, but also for those who are in the nonprofit sector, for those who work in community-based organizations, for all of us professionals of color who are supporting students in higher education. This is a space that we want to hold for you. But I'm not here alone. I have with me my colleague, Teresa Tyus, so she will be co-moderating with me. And there she is right there. Teresa, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Hello, welcome everyone. As Sana said, my name is Teresa Tyus, and I've been in the higher education industry for a little over 26 years. I'm very happy to be here, and I am an institutional support consultant here with Trellis, and thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. And now I would like to introduce our guest speakers. And Komal, if you'll advance to the next slide. So first, I'd like to introduce my friend and colleague, Lexi. Lexi earned her bachelor's in psychology and master's of science in education in higher education administration from the University of Miami. She completed a master's degree in professional counseling at Texas State University after realizing how much she wanted to be able to help college students emotionally and mentally. Lexi fell into her passion of perinatal health, mental health after her own experiences and seeing how few counselors of color there were in the perinatal world, and serving college students at PWIs. So she currently specializes in perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, grief and loss, young adults, and trauma. She is EMDR trained, Gottman Level 1 trained. She is a DONA trained postpartum doula. She currently resides in Texas with her husband and 3 children. She is an LPC intern, which means licensed professional counselor, and she is supervised by Lacey Fisher, LPCS, RPTS. So Lexi, thank you so much for being here today. Lexi is a dear friend of mine and has been there for me through many challenging times for me, especially most recently when I gave birth to my daughter. So thank you, Lexi, for being here. And next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Komal Chandra. Komal is a residence coordinator at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, where she oversees the operations of a 600-bed facility. She develops and executes biannual training for the Department of Residence Life, focusing on community building, crisis response, diversity, and inclusion. Dr. Chandra has a bachelor's in biological anthropology with a minor in public health and master of medical humanities from Drew University. She completed her PhD in urban systems recently, I should add, so congrats, in urban systems with a health track from Rutgers University. Dr. Chandra is passionate about improving social determinants of health in urban communities and advocating for holistic wellness. So thank you, Komal, thank you, Lexi, both for being here. And if we can go to the next slide, I'll just do a quick overview of what we'll be covering, and then I'll hand it over to the experts to take us through the next hour or so. So in this workshop, we will join in together in a mindfulness exercise. We will review the psychological education surrounding current events. And Lexi will talk a little bit more about what events exactly we're talking about and the impact that those events are having on people of color in our community. We'll explore grounding and other techniques to cope with trauma and heightened anxiety. We'll talk about how to create and use a self-care checklist. We'll learn how to manifest mindfulness and incorporate these strategies to achieve a better work-life balance. And finally, we'll discuss how to utilize these strategies when we support students and colleagues who are experiencing trauma. I know this to be true for me, that oftentimes when I am working with students directly, or when I'm working with colleagues who are experiencing their own trauma, it is challenging to both hold space for them and understand how to care for myself in that moment. And so we hope to be able to cover all of these things for you. Before we get started, a few reminders. I will ask that you create an intention to be present with us for the next hour, that you, put away all of the distractions. So if you can X out your Microsoft Teams or, whatever internal chat, Slack bot that you use to chat with your team, if you'll turn off your email, if you will give us your time and attention here today. I will say, don't put away your phone just yet, because we have a quick interactive activity, but if after that point, if you'll turn your phone away so that you can really be present with us for the next hour. So with that, I will turn it over to our guest speakers. If there are any questions, feel free to send them to us in the chat or Q&A feature. We will be spending the last 15 minutes of our session here today on community discussion and Q&A and sharing resources. But if you're like me, when I hold my questions till the end, I forget them. So feel free to chat them to us or send them in the Q&A, and we will address them in the discussion portion. Okay, thank you so much. And I'll hand it over to you, Lexi.
Well, thank you everyone for being here today and taking time to show up for yourself and self-care in these definitely trying times. It's definitely unprecedented. But I feel like many places are asking us to continue business as usual, and that's just not possible. And we wanted to take a moment to just acknowledge that it's not business as usual. We are in the middle of a pandemic and also a large movement, and you can't produce the same amount of work. We can't just show up all the time and fix your face and contribute and work with the same vigor. And we just wanted to acknowledge that, because with COVID, all areas of your life are being affected, including your emotional health, physical health, mental health. I'm sure we didn't have anxiety about going to the grocery store, picking up letter mail. Maybe you're worried about your children, your family, job security, and just taking a moment to acknowledge that all of these things that are happening are affecting us and our health. Lexi, do you want to continue?
Yeah, I think it's also important, and we would honestly be tone deaf if we did not recognize the racial trauma that is happening to all of us, to our communities, to our bodies, and how that shows up in the workplace, how that shows up in our personal lives. And so our constant exposure to Black violence and our ability to just turn on our laptop or turn on our phone and watch its virality is traumatic in and of itself. That's that secondary stress that we're all experiencing. And we may be called to watch it, but many of us have also expressed that it feels like the equivalent of lynchings almost, where we're gathering around to watch this. And it's too much for our nervous systems. It's just too much. You may feel protective of yourself. You may feel protective of your colleagues. You may feel protective of any students that you serve. And so some of those students are coming to you, or even colleagues, if you're like the auntie, our community auntie or uncle in the workplace, and you want to hold space, but when you already have such few resources and your bandwidth is low, you're just drained and you feel like you're letting everyone down. And so we want to acknowledge that that specific type of trauma as well, that is historical, that lives in our bodies, that's embedded in your DNA already. It's intergenerational. We don't want to pass this down to our kids, but this is what is happening and this is what we are experiencing. And so this is activating additional stress on your body as we're also dealing with a physical pandemic and not being able to live our lives the way we're used to living our lives. So we just want you to keep those things in mind as we deliver this webinar today. And so for the next few minutes, what I would ask all of you to do, and I will be doing this as well, if you can turn any video off or limit any other distractions, because I want you to maybe focus on this slide. And I just want you to focus on this meditation, just to ground ourselves and center ourselves. I can tell you that for myself, I need this meditation today as well. It's been a difficult morning more than others. And so it's important that for me to be here with you all today, we all take this moment and remind ourselves why we're here. And so maybe put your feet on the floor, ground yourself, put your hands, gently rest them on your lap or maybe on your chest where you can feel your breath in. Maybe hold it for a second and let it out. In through your nose and out through your mouth. So use this slide if you need. And notice your breath. Notice how it rises and falls with each inhale and exhale. Your thoughts are like waves. Just let them wash over you and then give them permission to go. Just notice. In this moment, in this space, your humanity is not in question. You matter. We matter. Black lives matter. You are not here to educate or justify your existence. Today, you are not here to advise. You have space. You can take up as much space as you need. Notice the movement of your breath. You are not the delegate for your entire race. Breathe in and out. You matter. You matter to me. You matter to your brothers and sisters and to this world. You are seen in this moment. And you are safe in this moment. The work you do every day is not for the faint of heart. The work you do has power. It has movement. Notice your heart and your chest. What are you noticing? If you can allow, let it fill with loving kindness for yourself. Let it fill with love and appreciation for your culture. Let it fill with health and wellness for those you are called to help. Breathe in and out. May you be well. May you be seen. May you be loved, valued, and validated. May you find peace in this hour, in this moment, right now. Breathe. When you're ready, come back to us. You know, sometimes when we're taking deep breaths in and out, it feels good to get lost in that. So if you're ready, we'll move on. And what I'm going to ask you all to do, this is the part where we ask you to take out your phone again, and then you can put it back. I want you to just think about some of the common concerns that your students or your colleagues are telling you. What's coming up? Can it be COVID related? It might be race related, but what are you hearing? What is coming up in meetings? And you're gonna see that you're gonna have the option to maybe list a few things that you're hearing. And what I wanna do is share with you, as you share either with this QR code or the code below, that we're all experiencing a variety of things. And I'm going to ask my colleague to be able to share my screen so I can show all of you maybe some of the concerns that are coming up. Oh, I can already see. Let's see. So yeah, everyone that's sending in, look at everything that's coming in. This is what you're experiencing just right now. Some of the common issues that you're talking about in meetings, your students are bringing to you, they're emailing. And we also know with higher ed, no one knows if school is starting, when it's starting, how it's starting, what resources we have. So look, financial, verbal aggression, stress, anxiety, isolation, racial trauma, safety, insecurity, fear. And so if you've used this tool before, the more people vote on with a certain word, the bigger that word gets. And stress is getting bigger, right? So this is what a lot of you are experiencing. I'm gonna let this keep running. I may, if we have time, I'll bring it back up towards the end just to see what else we have. Bill payments, yes. Because it helps just to conceptualize, take this cloud, and if you could take this cloud and absorb it, that is what each of you individually is experiencing on a day-to-day basis. Every day, this is what you're bringing to work every day. This is what your students are bringing to you every day. If you're in a nonprofit, you're battling all of these. How do I serve and battle these things that are happening within me? So thank you all for participating. And we'll bring those slides back up and continue on with our presentation. Again, thank you. So let's talk a little bit now about really what you are experiencing. And I've mentioned it before, that secondary traumatic stress. And so this is emotional duress that results when an individual hears about the firsthand trauma of someone else. So if it's your students or your colleagues, every time they come to you and they're talking to you about, let's go back to that slide, of financial instability, stress, racial trauma, personal things that are happening within the home. I'm not sure how I can pay my bills. I'm not sure if my children can eat. I'm not sure, I as a student, I don't know if I can come back to school next semester, if I can afford it. One of my family members has contracted COVID and now we're quarantined. I don't know what to do. I can't go to work. This is everything you are experiencing on a day-to-day basis, and it's extremely stressful. So we take that and let's talk about risk factors, just general risk factors. You may have your own life stressors. What if you have a personal history of trauma yourself? How long have you been working in this profession? Have you been in 20 years, 10 years, 5 years? My guess is you're also being asked or are working more than 40 hours a week right now. High turnover. If it's low pay, if you're not getting paid much, high turnover. And you may just be experiencing a lack of emotional support from other colleagues, from supervisors, anywhere else on campus. And so think about that cumulative effect of all of these factors, and you're all at a high risk for secondary traumatic stress. And I want to tell you too that I understand being a higher education professional at some point, and my degree was also in enrollment management, and we were very concerned about the numbers, right? The data, we have to crunch that data. And so I remember we have to remain financially solvent to even have a place for these students to return, to go, to have these resources. And so to keep everything afloat, that's what you're focused on. When I also started working with students, I had the ability to then use my own, what I call my own personal data. So my experiences, my emotions, to try and help make these decisions. But I understand just how difficult it can be when you're just trying to keep things afloat and you feel like you can't manage all of the other things that are happening on a day-to-day basis. So what happens then? What happens when you're not within what we call your window of tolerance? And I like this graphic because it just gives you a visual, and I think at some point you all will have access to the slides, so you'll be able to revisit this, and I'll just go over it briefly. But have you noticed anything happening with you physically? Any stomach or digestive issues, headaches, increased inflammation? So have you noticed maybe you're swollen more in like carpal tunnel, or your ankles are more swollen, chronic fatigue, more negative self-talk? So all of this is contributing to your overall health and wellness and increasing stress. We're lowering our ability to fight off infections. So now we have a vulnerable immune system because we're so stressed. And so when we're not that, when we are calm and we are collected and we're feeling like we are within our, what we call our window of tolerance, this is where you feel like you can engage with your family, with your colleagues. This is where what we call play and rest. So playful banter, wanting to socially engage with others. You have full access to emotions, full access to that prefrontal cortex where you can make logical decisions. That's when you're within your window of tolerance. What happens when you go out of that window? So I'm sure you've heard of fight or flight or freeze. So what happens when we start to get dysregulated? I've also layered on top of this something called polyvagal theory. It's really interesting, and if you are interested in learning more, just send me an email and I can send you some resources. It's very, helps explain our window of tolerance and our vagal nerve. It's the longest nerve that runs from our brainstem all the way into our colon and helps inform a lot of what you're seeing here. And so when we can't calm down, we're feeling threatened, that's that fight or flight. And so no new learning, very little communication, poor judgment, that's all happening here. But you're feeling like I need to engage, I need to do something. But you're not really making the best decisions that you could. You can come back out of that. You can still come out of that. Come back into your window. But there's also freeze, and that's underneath. That's that hypoarousal. That's, I give up. I'm done. Oh, I'm feeling numb. What happens if you can't feel anything at all? You're just so used to this. You're like, I don't feel anything. I'm so used to this. I don't even know how to respond. You want to withdraw. You may notice that you're not coming to work more, or you're putting in hours that you're not actually putting in. This is hypoarousal. We want to shut down, lack of energy. And so we immobilize. We don't want to do anything. So window of tolerance, I like to do this with my hands. What we want to do now, or where we are typically when you're coming to this webinar, your window of tolerance is a lot smaller. So imagine if you were to close that window graphic. What we want to do is open it up. We want to increase the window, so it's going to take a lot more for you to either go into hyperarousal or hypo, or at least have a better chance of catching yourself before you end up there. How does that present at work? So if you're in hyper, remember that's that fight or flight, that's all that excess energy. I want to mobilize, I'm going to do something, I'm feeling angry. So you may notice that you are a little more overengaged with a particular student or colleague, like I'm going to help them, I'm going to solve this problem for them, I'm going to do this. Maybe you're taking on more projects than usual because that's just what you're used to, and that feels good to be busy. But being super busy can also be super stressful. Have you noticed more arguments with colleagues, or you're just very quick, you want to play that, what we call that devil's advocate all the time? It's not useful. Have you become the office expert, that go-to person? Oh, just go to Lexi, she knows, she's got the answer, and then you're okay with that. That may show up, and that would be hyper arousal. You're ready to go. Hypo, remember that's that freeze response. I know we're all on Zoom calls all day long right now, but sometimes you get tired of it. Do you turn off video? Are you done? Are you just done? You don't want people to see you. Don't want them to see what's behind you or your kids running back and forth. You're just done. You may not answer email right away. Absenteeism. So if you're not showing up for work, if you're calling out, have you noticed you're taking more time off than you usually take off? Or just forgetting to do things, memory loss. So maybe you notice you have so many Post-its around because you just have a really difficult time remembering any tasks that need to be done or people that you need to get back to. What happens when you're in your window? So this is our ventral vagal state. And again, I can talk to you more about this another time. This could be a whole nother presentation, so I won't do that for you. But when you're within your window, you can sit and say, I hear what you're saying. Not feel mobilized to do something, to fix something for someone. Your energy may be restored. So you're getting restorative rest at night, and you're waking up ready to take on your day and ready to help. You're more present during meetings, and you feel like you can participate. And you're responding. You get an email, you don't feel like, it's one more thing I have to do. It just feels easier to respond. But also you can say no. So if you notice your bandwidth, so you notice you're about to go out of your window, you say, no, I don't think I can take that on. I don't think I can do that. So now what we're going to do is talk a little bit about how do you get into the window, right? Because you cannot do anything. It's going to be a lot harder to bring that prefrontal cortex back online to make logical decisions and have good judgment if you're not within your window. So we want to focus on some very basic grounding tools to get you within your window first, before you do anything else, before you can help someone, before you can help yourself. We want to ground. And so these are just some tips to help bring you back down. So breathing. We did that earlier with our meditation. Breathing in, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, hold for 4, in for 4. It's box breathing. I love it. I use it all the time at home. I have 3 kids at home. And let me tell you, when I came here, right before this webinar, we were just talking about how dysregulated some of us were. And so I had to take a moment and breathe myself, and it definitely helped. Touch. I love touch. Hold an ice cube. And so you're engaging some senses. Oh, it's cold. You can feel the texture. That will help bring you back into your body. Or if you have the ability to go outside and maybe dig your toes in the grass, or if you're close to sand, just earthing, right? Feeling something. I love to keep, we call them little fidgets, and I have them in my counseling room too. I actually took this from my kids, but it's just a little tangle. I think you can get them at Target or the Dollar Tree. But I keep it here sometimes because it just helps me touch something. It helps me play with something. It helps keep me grounded. It keeps me in the moment, and it's not distracting at all. Or identifying the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 5 things you see, 4 things you feel, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you taste. I can do that all just sitting right here in the room, where I can see my window, I can see the walls, I can smell that I put on some lavender right before this to help bring me back within my window. So there are different things that you can do, even when you're in your office, if you're actually back on campus or in your office space, or even at home in your home office. And so remember, we talked about decreasing arousal and increasing arousal, or hypoarousal, hyperarousal. So when you're in hyperarousal, again, fight or flight, we want to decrease arousal to come back within our window and widen our window first. Very simple things we can do. Drink through a straw. I always keep cold water by me. I even have my cup right here, and it has a straw in it. That just helps. We want to engage that ventral vagal nerve to help calm our nervous system. Weighted blankets. I keep weighted blankets around my house. I love them now. It helps decrease anxiety, and it feels like a warm hug to yourself. I know in the summertime you don't want a warm hug, but the weight can feel good on your body at first. If you have one of those small like stress balls, just take it and throw it up against the wall a few times. That's going to help. You'll hear the sound as well, so it's going to be something you hear, but just that rhythm. We want to engage some rhythm. Exercise, of course. Please exercise during this time. If you can, go for a walk. If you can, stretch. And let me even link that too to a yoga ball. I keep a yoga ball in here, and sometimes I'll do my sessions on the yoga ball. Just some simple bouncing. Or you could stretch on the yoga ball. That can help decrease some arousal as well. Soothing music, just something in the background. Again, that's something you hear. Jumping can be linked to exercise. You could do some jumping jacks or just jump a little bit in place. What about if we need to increase arousal? Oh, and I almost forgot about humming, but that comes for both. We can do humming for decreasing and increasing. And so what humming does is it helps kind of vibrate that vagal nerve. And what we want to do overall is increase vagal tone. Humming is also great, and I love it because it reminds me too of what our ancestors have done. Our ancestors were always humming. And so that helps bring just some amount of grounding. It brings you back and it feels good. Even when you meditate, we hum or we do an om. And so that's useful. Increasing arousal, again, essential oil. Get your favorite food, get a plate, get some snacks. That'll help shake off that numbness a little bit. Same with the weighted blanket. You're feeling some weight. So if you can feel it, you're starting to shake off the numbness. Little cold water. Go to the sink and just splash a little cold water on your face. That will help bring you back within your window. Or instead of the soothing music, put on a little fast music and just dance a little bit for a few minutes. And that will help bring you back out of that state, get you closer to your window of tolerance, because when you're within your window, you're going to be able to do all of the other coping mechanisms that we have listed that Como is going to go through with you, just to help you come into some type of habit forming practice.
Before Como, can we ask a question from one of the attendees? They want to know if you can be both hypo and hyper at the same time. Hyperarousal.
I would be interested to learn more about the symptoms before saying yes, you could. Typically with hypoarousal, if you're numb, you're not feeling anything. If we were to look at, I use the example all the time of, I don't know if it's an antelope, but it's animals in the wild. Like if there was a lion chasing an antelope, sometimes animals will just tip over and like they're preparing for death. That's that hypoarousal. They're shutting down because they're feeling like they're preparing to die. But that can also help with survival. And so typically if you're feeling that, so picture that, you're not in that fight or flight. You may have engaged that first. So if we were to go back to our antelope, they decided to flee and then realized, I think I'm done. I don't think this is going to work out. And they can quickly then go into hypo, but I don't know that they're going to be in hyper and hypo at the same time. It may feel like the same time because it's happening so quickly. And that in and of itself is traumatic. If that's happening to you over and over, that cycle of hyper and hypo, and you can't recognize it, and it just feels like one loop, then we want to get out of that. And that's something I think we can definitely address either later. We have our contact information too. I don't want to take up too much more time from Como because she has some great stuff. But I'd be more than happy to help address some of those questions if you have questions later.
Thank you, Lexi. Thank you for setting us up with all the psychological education surrounding trauma and setting us up with how to cope with trauma and some grounding. Once we've done that, we can start to focus on us and how do you take care of yourself, especially during, like we said, a pandemic, especially during a period of just uncertainty. I think we should start with the fact that health is not just the absence of disease. It's not just one static state of being. Health is, it ebbs and it flows. It depends upon external factors. It can depend upon how much sleep you got, your mood. But if we were to focus on holistic health, which is a more roundabout, holistic form of your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual health, you want to focus on your physical health. How are you feeling? Physically, your mental health, and your emotional health. Now, how do you know that you need some special love in one of these three areas? Take some time to listen to your body and watch for physical symptoms of, are you hungry? Are you cranky? Are you unable to sleep? Do you have swelling? Is your body swollen? Can you not focus on the computer for long periods of time? Once you start listening to your body and what it's trying to tell you, you can figure out which area of my health needs more attention. So for physical health, you want to look at things like food. Are you eating on time? Are you eating healthy foods? Your hygiene. When was the last time that you took care of yourself? You showered. When was the last time you went for a walk or worked out? For your mental health, when was the last time you put your phone down? Did you take time to meditate? Have you read a book? Did you write anything down? Have you taken some time to just deconnect from all the electronics, computers? I feel like we've been on Zoom meetings all day long. On top of that, emotionally, we're so connected right now. So have you found a way to disconnect and release all that pent-up emotions? Have you found ways to connect with yourself and be mindful of, what am I experiencing? A lot of the times we're on the go and we pick up all these concerns and our problem solving right and left, but have you taken a moment to realize all that we've been through in the past 3 months? The biggest thing is for self-care is to take some time and think and listen. So listen to yourself. Do I need more sleep? Do I need to unplug and put my phone away? Do I need to connect with my family till I feel better? Now, I would say take some time, and what you can do is you can write down physical, mental, emotional on a piece of paper, and you can say, have I been taking care of myself in these 3 ways? And if so, what's lacking? Once you figure out what's lacking, you need to tell others what you need from them so that you can take care of yourself. And that could be because before you would have your workspace and you have your family life, but right now maybe your CEO is your 4-year-old toddler, and your family that's usually at work is now all at home, and your schedule is just a little out of whack. So first thing is to take some time and find some time to think about, what do I need to take care of in my self-care needs? Do I need some physical help, like I need somebody to make dinner tonight? Do I need to unplug and meditate, or do I need emotional, just some more emotional attention? Utilize a grounding or mindfulness technique that Lexi went over with us earlier, so that you can get yourself into, a mode to think about, what are the things that I need? Take some time to either talk it out or write down what your list is of things that you need from others to help you take care of yourself. That's going to help you communicate clearly whenever you're going to talk to your team about what you need. Now, if you want, like I said, you can identify those specific areas of healthcare. So are you looking at your physical health? Are you looking at your emotional health? Are you looking at your mental health? And ask yourself, what's lacking? What do I need? How do I incorporate what I need? And what are barriers to achieving what I need? So if I need sleep, but I'm not getting sleep because I have to wake up early to go grocery shopping, can my partner do that instead for me? And now identify your team. Like I said before your team might have just been your colleagues or your family when you're at home, but right now everything is one big, I guess, just different than what you're used to. So how do you incorporate all members of your team? Can you ask some neighbors to help out? Can you ask your friends to help? Do you need to ask your child to, hey, how about you help make dinner tonight? Do you need to ask your partner to step up with some household duties? Do you need to ask your supervisor for an extension on time? So now that you've identified what areas need self-care, you've identified the specific actions to address those needs, and you've also identified who can help or hinder that self-care process, communicate with them. So you say, I need blank, so can you please help me by? Mommy needs some sleep, so can you please help by doing X, Y, and Z? Or I need an extension on this project. I've been just busy this week because my family member's been unwell, so can I have an extension by a few days? By communicating your needs, you can help others understand, because someone might not know what's going on in your world. So step up for yourself by communicating clearly, and hopefully that can help you take care of yourself. Then practice that self-care and fill your cup. And be sure to thank, acknowledge, and appreciate your team, because you want them to help you again. So now that you have your self-care checklist, you know how to communicate your self-care needs, and you've done so doing it in a grounded manner, you can now practice mindfulness. Now, mindfulness is an experience of being aware of your experiences, what's happening. Are you understanding everything that you've gone through in the past 3 months? Have you understanding what you've gone through today? Or are you just kind of going through the motions? Oftentimes you can spend the whole day just busy, one task for another, but have you really understood the trauma that you've been through and the problem solving that you've done, or how much of a rock star you are? So the way to step by step be mindful is start training your mind. Practice makes perfect, so practice being aware and observing and noting the things around you. And it takes practice to make that a habit. Take time to unwind, so implement a daily relaxation method, whether it's yoga, art, music, meditation, taking a walk, humming, as Lexi had mentioned earlier. Try to stop multitasking. I am one who will be on my phone while I'm eating, while I'm watching something on TV, and I have my laptop open as well. Take some time to give each thing that you do the time and attention that it deserves. It helps you be mindful of what you're doing in the moment, and it helps you from, I guess, just doing things without thinking about what you're doing. Pay attention more, so use your senses. While you're eating, what does the food that you're eating smell like? What does it taste like? When you're taking a walk, how does it smell? How does the area around you smell? How does it feel? You know, do I feel the air? Do I feel the wind? Do I hear kids laughing around me? What does everything experience? What does this experience mean to me? And take some time to be introspective about that. How does this experience make me feel mentally? How does this experience make me feel emotionally? How am I going to remember this moment that I'm in right now? And then find acceptance. So respect this process and be aware of your current perspectives, because they're going to change with every new experience, every new trauma that we're being dealt with and how we're handling it. And acknowledge what exists. Give yourself that permission to be as you are, feel what you feel, and experience that moment without judgment. There's a lot that's being asked of us, whether it's handling work or managing our families or our time or just how much is on our plate. So hopefully by manifesting mindfulness in your daily life, you're able to better control your emotions, your responses, and overall your health. Now, I know that because of COVID, a lot of us are work from home or living at work or vice versa, and it feels like our worlds have collided. How do you manage that? I live where I work, so I feel like I'm working 24/7 sometimes. And there's a lot of adjustment when you're not used to that. So we put together a list of ways to help you habit form for a better work-life balance. So the first thing would be to discuss the needs and expectations of both your family that you live with, as well as your company or an organization where you work. What are things that have to adjust? What are things that usually used to be done in person over phone meetings, but now we're going to do over email? Or do we need to work on our responsibilities, and instead, if you're the person that always does the grocery shopping or you're the one that cleans the house, how can you delegate those responsibilities better? Once you've discussed those needs and expectations and how they're going to change, you want to adjust your schedule and your goals. So do you usually work out in the morning and now you have to work out afterwards? Or do you usually have only 1 hour of screen time for your kids a day and now you need to up that to 2? Take some time to figure out how can you adjust your schedule and goals to meet those different needs and expectations of the time that we're in. What helped me is creating a productivity zone. So I have one area, my kitchen table, and that's where I do my work, because I know if I take my laptop to my bed, I will fall asleep. And I know if I take my laptop to the couch, I will watch TV. And that leads me thinking that I'm working longer when really I'm distracted. So I like creating a productivity zone. You can set up some things from your office in that area to help you feel like I am, in my zone of where I'm going to work. I'm going to be productive for this set amount of time. And when I need to take a break, I'm going to step out of that productivity zone. So that helps physically train your mind that I can be productive now and I can take a break now. That also might help your family members say, when I'm here, do not disturb. This is where I'm going to be working. Form accountability partners. It sometimes is difficult to manage a task by yourself, and using accountability partners, you can increase your success rate of completing a project, a task, or a goal. So for work, accountability partners could be, I need my colleague to text me so that we can work on, maybe we have 2 different reports that are due, but we can work on it together by being on Zoom or FaceTime, working separately, but still working together so that someone is there counting on you. You could also, if you want to increase your walking in a day, maybe you can text a neighbor, hey, let's go for a walk for 1 hour every other day. Knowing that someone else is depending upon you can help you meet your goals better and also help you hold someone else accountable. Like we said, communicate with your new team, whether that's, hey, please don't disturb me when I'm in my productivity area. It could be that I need to work on this project, so I need you to step up with whether it's dinner, groceries, or I need time so I can work on this. And then also be flexible and be kind. How many times have you gone out to eat and have had some amazing food and you have no more space, but then you kind of unbutton your pants a little bit and give yourself more space? Be sure to take some time to unzip or unbutton, because we really are dealing with a lot. And we need to acknowledge that and be aware of that and realize that it's okay to unzip or unbutton. Even if we're working from home and you need to take a sick day, take that mental health sick day. If you need some time to communicate with your partner that I need to turn off for a little bit, do so, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of others. We can't get things done. And definitely now, all areas of our life are being affected in terms of our health. So make sure that you're taking care of yourself physically and mentally, emotionally, and communicating with others what you need from them so that you can help them and they can help you. All right. So we know that in our world, we are working with higher education professionals, whether they are students, whether there's our colleagues, like we are supervisors. So Lexi and I talked about what are some things or tips that we can do to support others experiencing trauma. And we split it up into things that you can do before this interaction, whether it's a student, a colleague, or supervisor, anyone you work with or staff, what you can do during the interaction and what you can do after the interaction to help yourself and take care of yourself while you're supporting others experiencing trauma. So, Lexi, you want to start us off?
Yeah, so prior to the interaction, whether again it's with a colleague or a student, it's going to be so important to define your boundaries, time, and emotional energy. I know many of us have adopted lovely Representative Maxine Waters' Reclaiming My Time. And this is all about reclaiming your time. So what are you willing to do? When are you ready to say, no, that's out of my, either like, I just don't have the bandwidth right now. There is someone else on the staff that can help. Or making sure that you understand what your boundaries are with your students. That can be tough too, when you start to hear parts of your story, parts of your personal narrative that may go unprocessed. You may start to hear it in your students, and that's where that boundary can get crossed pretty easily. So can you separate your story from theirs? That's part of defining your time, emotional energy, and protecting it as well. On the second one, you can move forward, be aware of your resources on and off campus, because sometimes we know either on-campus resources can be very limited, especially financial resources, or I always remember that the counseling and mental health centers on so many college campuses, if you have one, are usually packed. Max capacity, it's hard to get students in to be seen. If you're the employee and you're looking to use your EAP benefits, it can also be difficult to be seen if you even have a counselor on staff to meet with staff in particular. So be aware of how you can resource off campus as well. What's in your local neighborhood? I know here within Austin, we have other low-cost counseling resources as well, like the YWCA, Capital Area Counseling here in Austin as well. Maybe there's some support groups. Sometimes support groups are a little more cost-effective, but can also give you what you're needing or give your students what they're needing at the time. Also knowing too that universities tend to operate every tub on its own bottom. And so you can be so siloed that you forget that you can utilize another department or contact another colleague to help resource what you're needing at any given moment. So.
Unmuted, there we go. You can also create your own library of literature or articles. That helps with avoiding re-education burnout. If you're constantly having to re-explain a theory, a concept, why Black Lives Matter, why things are historical, how COVID affects your health, why you need to wear a mask. Sometimes what I've done is I've saved articles from websites, journals, Facebook, news articles. There have been a wonderful infographics. I save those, and when someone needs, just a little bit of education or ask those questions, instead of me having to re-educate, I give them the information through this library that I have. And that just helps me from over-explaining and really burning myself out. You can also utilize other methods to check in instead of an hour-long Zoom session or a call, perhaps an email or a text, or hey, I have 15 minutes at the end of this meeting that we can, talk and check in, rather than having something that's very draining for yourself. Also, ahead of time, schedule time between meetings to decompress. So if you have back-to-back meetings, one at 1 o'clock, one at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, when are you taking time for yourself? When are you taking time to eat? When are you taking time to go to the bathroom, decompress? So what I'd like to do is sometimes schedule 15 minutes between my meetings just to breathe, just to take care of myself and check in, or call a friend and scream, or whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. Also, information gather. Sometimes what you can do is, before setting up a meeting with someone, whether it's a colleague or a staff member, ask, okay, what is this meeting going to be about? Or what are the things that you want to talk about, so I know that I'm prepared to help you? That avoids that, when you're sitting in that moment, piecing together things, information, resources. If you can do so ahead of time, it might help you prepare for how much emotional energy you need to put forth in the next meeting.
So during the interaction, what happens, right? So we gave you some tips for prior, but it's going to happen, right? We're going to either be in crisis with our students, we're going to feel what they're feeling, we're going to be in crisis with our work colleagues, with our employees. So what happens when you're in this interaction now? Again, boundaries are so important. So we want you to be aware of those boundaries. One thing that is also very important to mention, and I've also experienced this, I'm sure many of you too have experienced this. What happens when in your office, you are the one that's considered basically the diversity and inclusion officer? You have been dubbed the diversity and inclusion officer, even though that's something that does not exist within your office, but everyone comes to you because they would like to come to you to consult. What should we do? How do we respond? What do you think we should put in this message? How do we interact with this other nonprofit that we're supposed to be supporting? And you just feel that weight of being the token person of color in the office and having to respond. This is also during the interaction. This is also part of your boundary. One thing I've gotten very comfortable with telling either colleagues or other working professionals when they come to me with that is Google is free. And sometimes people will laugh, but it's so important to remember that boundary. If it's a student of color or another colleague of color, what I love to do is invite curiosity, because we're just asking questions. We're curious. We can remain with an open heart and be curious about why they're coming to you with these questions, why it makes them feel like they feel safe enough to come to you to ask. But invite curiosity and you still don't have to give the answer. Remember, stay calm and cool. That's part of that window of tolerance. Increase that window of tolerance so you can be calm and cool. Remember, just take 3 breaths before you even respond. And that will help you regulate your nervous system And just by regulating yourself, you have the ability to regulate someone else that's close to you, or even on Zoom. When they can tell that you're calm and cool, then you have the ability to help regulate them. Normalize and validate. Validation helps us feel accepted by others. Validation says, I see your pain, I see your joy. Validation means I belong and I matter. So what happens when you're validated? When you're heard? And what normalizing can do is it reduces shame. It invites your colleagues in. It helps you form an alliance with your students, with your coworkers, and with anybody else that you're working with that's supporting students. Any higher ed professional, when you normalize what's happening, you're inviting. You're saying, me too, I hear this, I am experiencing this, and it's okay. Assess, triage, connect, right? So when you're ready, start asking those questions because you're calm. You know what to ask, you know how to invite. Connect either the student, connect the colleague, connect the employee with another resource. You don't have to be the all. You don't have to provide everything for everyone. So do the assessment, take your time. And listen versus advising. Remember that reflective listening. Instead of saying, okay, well, now that I've gotten all this, this is what you should do. No, say, okay, well, how does that make you feel? Because this sounds really difficult. And I'm feeling this too. I'm noticing that I'm reacting. What is this doing for you? Or instead of, let me fix that, let me summarize. What I hear you saying is, and summarize and work together. You don't have to be the one that's answering and fixing every single thing.
Things you can do post-interaction. Thank you so much, Lexi. We already talked about scheduling time after meetings to decompress, but it's also okay to start a meeting 5 minutes late if you need it. Make sure you're listening to yourself, listening to those cues. Do you need a moment to eat something? Do you need a moment to breathe? Do you need a moment to connect with a friend really quick? So make sure that even if you don't have the time scheduled, if you need to schedule time in last minute, do it. Take care of yourself. Take time to reflect upon the recent interaction and accept how you're feeling. That secondhand trauma is real. Listening to someone else's traumatic experience does affect you, and it does affect your health. There are 2 experts here telling you this, and it's okay to feel how you're feeling. So take some time to reflect upon that. Emotionally detach. So ways you can do that is to acknowledge your feelings and emotions. Then you can shift that emotional feeling, whether it's by emotionally releasing through calling a friend. You could take some time to read, talk things out, just anything that keeps your emotions back to regulated to where you need them to be. You can physically decompress by stretching, breathing, taking a walk, dancing a little bit, whatever works for you. Mentally decompressing. So once you've emotionally detached a bit, physically you've stretched out a bit, how do you get your mind back to where you need it to be? You can meditate, listen to music, play some games, Sudoku. It could be anything. It could be some Candy Crush on your phone, but anything to get your mind back to center. That's really going to help you support other students, other colleagues, staff members that are experiencing trauma. So this is what we had for you today. We're just going to go over, I guess, a reflection of everything we talked about and some takeaways. Lexi, you're muted.
Don't you hate that with Zoom? So we briefly talked about just the psychological education of trauma. That was that window of tolerance we showed you, and even just some other tips about what happens when you're experiencing secondary traumatic stress. We also gave you some grounding tools. If you need more, just email us, let us know.
We went over a self-care checklist and how to communicate those self-care needs, how to manifest mindfulness, how to habit form for work-life balance, and how to support others that are experiencing trauma. We have some resources for you, which we will also email out through Trellis Company and Trellis Foundation. But here's some resources for physical health apps, some mental well-being apps, as well as some websites and books. In interest of time, we won't go through each of them, but this slide deck will be available for reference along with the PDF resource list.
All right, so thank you, Lexi and Gomel. We know that many folks had to sign off because we are running right at 1 p.m. Central Time, and so you may have had meetings scheduled or you may just be jumping off. If I'm catching you before you're leaving, thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us today. If you can stay on for another couple of minutes and engage with us, ask us any questions you may have, we'd love to hold space for you. And it looks like we got a lot of personal messages in the chat thanking us. We had someone ask if we can hold part 2 and 3. We will have to go back to our team and see what we can do, but we certainly appreciate that, and we will take that for consideration. I will say we do have a survey that will pop up right after you click out of Zoom, and if you can take that survey, it would really help us out, give us some good feedback, and if you have any ideas for upcoming webinars or part 2 or 3 potentially, let us know. Drop that in the feedback, either in chat here or on the survey link. Let's see, I'm looking through. Teresa, were there any questions that we received that we were not able to answer?
There was one, not really know if it was a question or pretty much a concern that she had and didn't know if we could address it or not. She says, I know I'm burning out. I know what I need and want. I need to recharge and sleep more. I have a full-time job working from home and from the office. I have a 4-year-old and 7-month-old, so I don't sleep at night, maybe 2 hours, but I cannot do it. It's like nobody can help. I don't know what's lacking and what are the obstacles for me to recharge. Been there, done that.
Right. Oh, I felt that.
That's a good one. That's a good
I felt that. And if whoever submitted that, I would absolutely love if you reached out to me. I don't know if you're in Texas. I don't know if you're in Austin. I don't know if you're in California or wherever you are, but I would like to help maybe find some resources. That's also what I'm here for, is to help link you with other mental health resources. We're all, like many of us therapists, we're doing teletherapy. So I get it. I am working from home full time. I have 2 sound machines going and my kids are constantly screaming or fighting. And my husband works full time and he has been working from the kitchen, and we are doing our best to make it work and extremely stressed. And I feel that. I feel that so much, and I want to be able to connect you with what you're needing wherever you are, maybe reaching out and connecting with some other therapists in different states to see what we can do. But part of this too is if you can just get within your window of tolerance first. That's going to be the most important thing, is remembering to breathe, to remember that we are all experiencing this pandemic, the COVID pandemic, a racial pandemic. We are all doing this together. And one thing I don't think I said out loud was that we heal in community. And so it's so important for us to reach out to our friends, family, if family is, or could be family of choice, but to let people know what you're experiencing, and don't be afraid to ask for help, because we need each other. And so if that means, I also addressed someone about humming. Someone said, well, what happens if you hum and everybody else can hear it in the office and they don't like it? Start your own humming practice, but humming together too. That's part of healing, right? I don't know if you noticed at one point, I just tend to rock a little bit, and I don't mean to, but I think it's instinctual, right? We rock and we hum, and just gentle rocking. I do it when I'm in session with my clients too. And that alone is soothing. Just to be in touch with yourself. That helps you get within your window. That helps bring that prefrontal cortex back online, and then we can help do the resourcing part.
Thanks so much for that. And I believe that question came to us from Zuleika. So Zuleika, I feel that as well, as someone who's working full time and has a rambunctious 13-month-old crawling around, refusing to nap when I need her to nap. I feel that very much. And I do hope that you will reach out to Lexi so that she can link you up with the appropriate resources. Any other questions? Any other questions? or comments. We heard, you know, a lot of validation about community healing. We had a lot of folks respond and say, yes, that is pivotal, it's key. Community healing is very important. We have just a few more moments here. We have held this time on our calendars to be here for you. So we'll stay on and see if there's any other questions or items to discuss. Lexi brought up something that I think is really key that, you know, I'd like to dive into a little bit further. Lexi, is oftentimes when you are the only person of color in your office, in your organization, at your nonprofit, your community college, you know, wherever you're working at your community-based organization, people can gravitate towards you. Your students certainly will, because they see so much of their identity in you, but also your non-professionals of color may gravitate towards you for answers, for validation. They may lean on you for a number of reasons, and that can be very challenging. So Lexi, como, you know, y'all gave us a lot of advice, but can you talk a little bit more about that? You know, that is something that I think many of us deal with and we struggle with as well.
Definitely. Once that one person who everyone comes to for a resource or to unload, or the same person to educate, that person is going to burn out. That person is going to, from taking on all this responsibility on top of their other work, right? This isn't even part of our regular role or job or assignments. Emotionally, it's frustrating. Why isn't anyone else stepping up? We all have access to Google and it's free. Why is my supervisor not saying anything? Sometimes, you know, we could say that it's that others don't know, but that's not an excuse anymore, right? We as organizations, as you know, educated people have a responsibility to step up, regardless of, you know, your background or color of your skin or what we know or don't know. So that could come up with us communicating to our supervisors that, hey, I don't know if you're aware, but this is a lot of the work that I've been doing, and you have staff members that are coming to me because they feel safe, but why don't they feel safe coming to you? Why don't they feel safe speaking up? And, you know, rather than being accusatory, say, do you think that we could do a seminar? Do you think we can attend a webinar or workshop? Maybe Trellis has something for us to go to. Or being open and honest. I know that during one of our staff meetings, we were privileged that our supervisor, you know, gave us space and time to talk. So if you are in a supervisory capacity, this might be a wake-up call that your team needs you. Your team needs to be heard and be seen, or your people of color need to know that they're supported and it's not all on their shoulders. So it takes others to step up. So if you're someone that hasn't been speaking, I challenge you and encourage you to educate yourself, read books, use some of the resources that we have listed. And when you see that one person is constantly being the one that has to answer all the questions, try. Maybe you speak up or secondhand that opinion, or provide resources as well. So if you're a supervisor, I suggest resources for your team and an open space. If you're someone that's always getting the questions, I suggest being open with your teammates and saying, I need you to please step up because I'm getting burnt out by doing this. And also sometimes if you can't, then don't. Take care of yourself first before you take care of others.
Thanks for that, Komal. Lexi, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Komal really hit the nail on the head with that one. And so I don't want to continue repeating the same things. Plus I had added some things earlier when we initially brought this up. So I definitely appreciate those suggestions, and especially with Como actually being on a college campus right now, I think it's also very useful since I work mainly with individuals, and we'll talk about this with individuals. So.
Okay, and so we're at 1:11. We want to be respectful and mindful of everyone's schedule today. We'll just wrap up by saying a thank you again for joining us today, for taking time out of your day to reflect with us, to meditate with us, to breathe with us, and to just be here with us. I feel often that just our existence alone in this space is a form of activism. It feels on many days. And so you are here. We see you, we hear you, we're here for you. And we thank you for taking this time to really do this with us. And so again, the survey will be available when you close out of the Zoom link, you hit end, it will pop up. But you know, those were my closing statements. I don't have anything more to add. Teresa, Lexi, Komal, anything before we wrap up and say goodbye?
I really don't have anything additional as well. Just want everyone to have a great rest of the day and take some time to relax. And hopefully this webinar, like I say, was good and it definitely helped me. So thank you for attending.
I just want to say thank you for taking this time for yourself, to take care of you and put yourself first. Also, Lexi and I are available if you want to reach out. Our emails are on the screen and we'd be more than happy to connect with you on any other questions or resources that you may need.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today. And again, just don't forget that you matter and you belong, and we see and hear all of the struggles that y'all are bringing. So thank you for joining us.
Great. So thank you, Komal and Lexi, and thank you to Trellis Company and of course our sister organization, the Trellis Foundation, for allowing us to host this space for you all today. We really appreciate everyone behind the scenes, Brian, Steve, Jenny, Kristen, Kia. We appreciate all of you. And again, a super big shout out to Lexi and Komal for taking the time today and sharing their wisdom and expertise with us. We appreciate you all. Take care, stay safe, be well, and we'll be reaching out soon with the slide deck and recording. And don't forget that survey. Don't forget that survey. All right, y'all, take care. Bye.